I think from what I've seen with Ian Garry, he's a guy that can get it done. Again, Islam is one of the greatest to ever do it in this game. He's dominant in his field, and now he's at welterweight. Like against JDM, I thought JDM scrambling would give him problems, but nah, it wasn't the case. But with Garry, the fight with Shavkat, he got close at the end as well, finishing Shavkat, but the way he handled Shavkat's grappling, I wouldn't say foreshadow what's gonna happen with that fight, but I haven't actually looked at that fight too much yet, but I'm excited for that fight just because it's like, again, another one of those ones where it's like destiny. A guy like Ian Machado, who's come up, had this dream, been calling it since day dot, and he's been saying, I'm the future.
John, please, one question for Russian MMA fans. Islam Makhachev versus Ian Garry. What do you think about this fight?
Oh, I'm going with Islam because he has a wrestling background, and it's hard to beat wrestlers. So Islam, he may just be one of the greatest fighters in the world right now. It's me and maybe him. So I encourage him to keep going.
Ian Garry had this to say today.
In my ideal scenario, I want a 4th round finish. I don't want any early knockout, because then there's ifs, buts, maybes, there's excuses.
As you guys know, Ian Garry is a very, very confident kid. Islam is unchallenged as the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. When you hear him say stuff like, I want a 4th round knockout because I don't want anyone to say it was a fluke. I love confidence. I love confidence. I love a guy that believes in himself and call their shot. What I don't understand though is sometimes a person is misguided in their thoughts. They set themselves up for a very, very bad night or a bad result. I'm not saying Ian Garry cannot beat Islam Makhachev. What I'm saying is you got to take that as it comes. You can't try to say, I want to beat the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world in a certain round because I don't want it to be a fluke. If you win, it does not matter.
If Jan has chances, you mean to beat Islam?
Yeah.
It's a fight business. Everyone has chances. Everyone, and especially someone like Ian. He's been able to collect a lot of experience during his run in the UFC. And why not? I see him with a lot of chances.
Islam fights Ian. Who wins?
Of course, I think Makhachev gonna win. Makhachev is a double champ, really good fighter. Ian Garry is the underdog, but I really believe Ian have a really good skills to beat Makhachev.
Who would you prefer to fight?
The both would be good. For the legacy, Makhachev is great, just one loss, a lot of winning streak. But for me, by person, I prefer Ian. That lose for me is still a little bit painful, so I think me and Ian, we still have some business to do.
You think Ian is a good choice to test Islam, who will be going for his 17th straight UFC win, trying to break Anderson Silva's record, which he's currently tied with.
Oh wow, yeah, that's wow. I think it's gonna be a good fight. Ian Garry, it's definitely a tough opponent, very good striker. But Islam once again is gonna be his goal gonna be to bring the fight to the ground, and I think if he's able to do that, he's gonna have an edge. If Ian Garry is able to keep it on the feet, and Ian gonna have an edge, so it's gonna be interesting. Islam has the edge in terms of skills because he's more well-rounded. He can do it all, and he especially with his grappling, he's got an edge in that department, and I think that's what he's gonna try to go for. Maybe he will eventually go up in the middleweight and try to go the 3-weight class club.
Garry, Islam Makhachev. Islam Makhachev, too tough for Garry. Garry has a good striking. I think on the striking, Garry make problem for Islam, but Islam has a good timing of takedown. He's gonna take him down and most likely submit round number 3. So, yeah.
Скрытые таланты Ахмада.
Мура, чтобы от тебя пульса была, хоть подержи, да?
Не, тоже он есть здесь, там я рассыплюсь от твоих ударов. Вот здесь, который На живот тоже можешь принять. Да, на живот можешь принять, нормально.
Nobody understands exactly how dangerous Islam Makhachev is better than the men who've actually been in the cage with him. And as UFC 330 approaches, several of those former opponents are speaking out, giving fans a rare, insider perspective on what Ian Machado Garry is actually walking into on August 15th. Alexander Volkanovski knows that reality better than almost anyone on the entire UFC roster. He's shared the octagon with Makhachev twice, going the distance in a closely contested decision loss at UFC 284 before getting finished by knockout in their rematch at UFC 294. When asked to weigh in on Makhachev's move up to welterweight and his continued dominance, Volkanovski didn't hesitate. "You can't doubt him," he said, discussing Makhachev's title win over Jack Della Maddalena. Volkanovski went further, describing exactly what makes Makhachev so uniquely dangerous compared to almost anyone else in the sport. "He doesn't like to come in straight where he feels in danger," Volkanovski explained, breaking down Makhachev's entry technique in granular detail. "He'll make sure he's off-center, his head is offline, and then he gets himself back into a better posture as he's taking you down. Khabib was like this as well. The posture is not right, but he's doing this to keep his head off-center and not in the firing line, and he still does a great takedown from there." That's not just praise. That's a former two-division champion breaking down, strike by strike, exactly why Makhachev has been nearly impossible to keep at range for a full 25 minutes. Volkanovski experienced that reality directly across 10 rounds of championship fighting, and his read on Makhachev's technical mastery carries a weight that pure hype simply can't match. It's worth remembering just how competitive that first fight actually was before drawing conclusions about how dominant Makhachev really is. Volkanovski, stepping up in weight and preparation time was limited, still pushed the then lightweight champion the full 25 minutes, and lost a close decision that many observers scored differently. That history is part of why his voice carries so much weight in this conversation. He isn't speaking as someone who was thoroughly outclassed. He's speaking as someone who came agonizingly close to beating Makhachev once, got finished more decisively the second time around, and has spent real time studying exactly what changed between those two fights. Dustin Poirier offers a similarly respectful, battle-tested perspective, having gone the distance with Makhachev before ultimately being submitted in the 5th round of their UFC 302 encounter. Poirier has spoken at length about what makes facing Makhachev so mentally exhausting, beyond just the physical danger. "The threat of that always in front of you for 25 minutes, Poirier said, describing the psychological burden of constantly defending against Makhachev's grappling threat. "It's hard to get off your combinations and get off the power shots when that pressure never lets up. That's a detail worth sitting with, because it reveals something training footage and highlight reels never fully capture." Fighting Makhachev isn't just about surviving individual exchanges. It's about performing under a constant, grinding awareness that one mistake, one dropped level change, one moment of overcommitment on offense opens the door to a takedown that's ended careers and title reigns alike. Poirier's respect for Makhachev extends beyond his own experience in the cage, too. When discussing Makhachev's move up to face Della Maddalena for the welterweight title, Poirier offered a rare piece of tactical insight, essentially warning that Makhachev himself would need to adjust his usual approach against a bigger, more dangerous striker. "He can't just sit there and exchange combinations with JDM in the center of the cage," Poirier said at the time. "I don't think he can do that. He's going to lose if he does that." That prediction proved only partially accurate. Makhachev found a way to win a clean unanimous decision over Della Maddalena at UFC 322, but Poirier's underlying point, that facing bigger, more dangerous strikers requires genuine adaptation even from a fighter as dominant as Makhachev, is exactly the same question hovering over his fight against Garry. Not every former opponent connected to Makhachev's circle is picking him this time, and that's part of what makes this build-up so genuinely compelling. Charles Oliveira, submitted by Makhachev back in 2022 to begin his lightweight title reign, is actually in Garry's corner for this fight, training alongside him as part of his preparation. Speaking about why he believes his training partner can pull off the upset, Oliveira didn't hedge. He's a guy that puts that game plan right under his arms and just sticks to it. And that's the reason why I believe in him, Oliveira said through a translator. He's a guy that just never detours from the plan. He goes and follows the strategy, and is a guy that you need to pay attention to. Look at what he's done with these recent opponents. He's been able to beat them at his game and impose his rhythm, so I do believe he has a chance to do that. That's a genuinely fascinating wrinkle in this entire storyline. A fighter who's actually felt Makhachev's dominance firsthand, who knows exactly how suffocating his grappling and championship rounds can be, is now standing in the opposite corner, betting on discipline and game plan execution being enough to end the 16-fight winning streak. Oliveira's endorsement isn't a dismissal of Makhachev's danger either. It's a specific, informed argument that Gary's biggest strength, his ability to stick to a strategy without getting baited into mistakes, might be exactly the trait needed to survive a fighter this dangerous. Jack Della Maddalena, the man Makhachev most recently dethroned to capture the welterweight title, brought his own fire into the build-up before their fight, though his comments came before that November encounter, rather than about the current Gary fight. It's a dream title defense, pound for pound #1, getting back for Volk, Della Maddalena said at the time, vowing to avenge his countryman Volkanovski's losses. I'm going to get him. He's too little. He's too little. I'm going to get him. That confidence didn't translate into victory, with Makhachev winning a clean decision, but it's a reminder that nearly every fighter who's stepped in against him has walked in believing they had a legitimate path, regardless of how the fight ultimately unfolded. Even Makhachev's own comments about his toughest opponents reveal just how highly he regards this exact list of fighters. Asked which victory gave him the most satisfaction, Makhachev pointed directly to his wars with Poirier and Volkanovski, rather than his more dominant performances. The Poirier one, I would show you my hardest fights, Makhachev said, describing the 5th-round finish as feeling like a street fight by the end. He credited the Volkanovski rematch with proving something fundamental about his own resilience, saying that fight showed he'll never break, no matter how difficult things get inside the cage. That's a telling detail. The fighters speaking most credibly about Makhachev's danger right now are the same ones he himself considers to have pushed him closest to his limits. Put all of that together, and you get a remarkably three-dimensional picture of what Gary is actually facing on August 15th, built entirely from the perspective of men who've lived through it. Volkanovski's technical breakdown of Makhachev's entries, Poirier's account of the relentless mental pressure across 25 minutes, Oliveira's belief that discipline and game plan execution give Gary a real, credible path, and Makhachev's own admission of exactly which fights actually tested him the most. Gary enters this fight as a significant underdog, sitting around plus 250 to plus 285 depending on the sportsbook, with Makhachev favored heavily in the range of minus 310 to minus 350. Given everything these former opponents have said about the difficulty of simply surviving Makhachev's pressure for a full 5 rounds, that line makes sense on paper. But with Oliveira in Gary's corner specifically because he believes discipline can overcome dominance, and with even Poirier acknowledging that Makhachev has had to genuinely adapt his approach against bigger opponents in recent fights, this matchup carries more layered uncertainty than the raw odds might suggest. So who do you trust more heading into Philadelphia? The men who survived Makhachev and walked away in awe of his danger, or the training partner who believes he's found the blueprint to finally end the streak? It's rare to get this many detailed first-hand accounts from fighters who've actually shared the cage with a champion this dominant, and that's exactly why their perspectives carry more weight than most outside predictions heading into this fight. Drop your prediction in the comments, and subscribe for more UFC 330 breakdowns as Fight Week approaches.